Nova. This huge American warship is on patrol in the Persian Gulf, an armed presence in a troubled place. Top Gun pilots are at the ready, catapulting into the air at 150 miles an hour, then landing, caught only by a hook. 5,000 men keep 80 planes constantly in the air, alert and ready to carry out any mission assigned to the aircraft carrier.
Funding for NOVA's 20th anniversary season is made possible by Lockheed, America's aerospace company, supporting math, science, and engineering education for national technology leadership. And Johnson & Johnson, the signature recognized around the world for commitment to quality healthcare products for the entire family. Major funding for NOVA is provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by annual financial support from viewers like you.
The sun rises over the mountains of Iran as the crew of the aircraft carrier Independence begins another day. A rescue helicopter eases into the air, circling the carrier, ready for any emergency as the daily cycle of flight operations gets underway. The ship carries 80 planes, a combination of fighters, bombers, and reconnaissance aircraft, the equivalent of a small air force. As the day progresses, these planes will be launched into the air by steam catapults to patrol the skies over Kuwait. The carrier's mission is to maintain a presence in the Persian Gulf and enforce the ceasefire with Iraq.
Since Desert Storm, of course, we have generally had a carrier, at least one, in this area of operations, sometimes in the Gulf, sometimes not, but in the general area. Independence was therefore one in a long line of carriers that had come into the Arabian Gulf.
This aircraft carrier is a visible expression of U.S. global influence and a potent weapon. It travels hundreds of miles in a single day, and with airborne radar planes and satellites, can monitor flights across the Middle East. Carriers are a key to U.S. military policy.
They can operate independently, far away from home for an indefinite amount of time, sustain that presence either very close off a nation's shores or well away. A carrier on the horizon or close by, it lets people know that we're serious about our commitment to a region, and I think that's the principal role we play.
Leaving her Japanese home port for what should have been a routine 6-month patrol, Independence visited ports in Australia, then traveled 7,000 miles across the Pacific and Indian Oceans through the Straits of Hormuz to take up station in the confined waters of the Persian or Arabian Gulf. Independence is one of the largest warships afloat, combining men and equipment into a massive, complex machine.
It's a big ship. It's a big unit. I see it probably a little bit differently than other people see it because I'm in charge of it. So I see it as a whole. I look out and I watch the way the airplanes are moving. Do we have a lot of airplanes taxiing at that time? How much heel can we put on the ship? How much wind do we need? How much sea room do we have? Are we going to run into one of these oil wells out here because we haven't positioned ourselves quite correctly, or the wind has changed on us? Those are all the things that I look at, and of course, also the safety of each individual on here. We've got roughly 5,000 people on board. Everybody is absolutely vital to the ongoing evolutions of every day. For example, if the guy in one of the main engineering spaces doesn't do his job right, the lights go out. And that can affect the guy that's making an approach to the carrier if the lights go out.
It's a little Spartan out here. Somebody said, I think, 100 years ago about the Navy, that's a lot like being in prison, except you have a greater chance of drowning. So that's still true today.
Commissioned in 1959, the ship is older than most of the people on board. 5,000 men live beneath the flight deck in 8 cramped and artificially lit decks. There are 3 miles of corridors and over 2,000 separate compartments. Parts of the ship will be unfamiliar to some of the crew, even after 6 months. The senior officers have little contact with enlisted men. For them, the Master Chief, the most senior non-commissioned officer on board, is the key figure.
On the ship, I am the Command Master Chief. That is the title. My responsibility is to be about and to present a presence to the crew, and I represent them on behalf of the commanding officer and the executive officer. How you doing? How you doing? Good. How you doing, Gunny? All right. So how long they gonna last?
800 sandwiches usually last about maybe 3-4 hours.
You know, with 5,000 people, you pretty much have to feed over here for 20 hours a day, is that right? Forward and aft galley, we feed about 20 hours a day, and it's real tough. Watch, Cap, you tell me how much bread we make every day?
Anywhere between 12 and 1,600 loaves.
12 and 1,600 loaves a day, huh? Okay.
The men sleep and work around the clock, with little time or room for recreation. There are 3 TV channels that show news, sports, and movies.
Oh, my goodness! Goodness gracious! Oh, my! Oh, goodness.
How much longer you got down here?
In the cruise.
In the cruise, huh? Okay. This is like laundry. We have to wash everybody's clothes every day, obviously. So we use young men like this who just come in the Navy and they come here temporarily assigned for 3 months. Then they go back to do what we pay them to do. And what's your rate? AMS. You're AMS. He works on aircraft, structural mechanic. And he'll be down here for 3 months to assist the ship and wash the clothes and take care of the rest of the crew.
Space is so limited that only senior officers have any real privacy. Even the flight crews share cramped cabins with up to 7 other people. It is a relentlessly masculine environment. But by summer 1994, women will begin serving alongside men on U.S. aircraft carriers.
This is the average man's bunk space. It's not a lot of room, but it's pretty much about the only place on the ship that he can go and have total privacy. And he pull his curtains through, and he got a light he can read.
For 6 months at a stretch, men live in these conditions so that the ship can sail and the planes continue to fly.
How you guys doing? All right. All right. Who's with it? Who's with it?
Ain't over yet.
Where y'all ready? Y'all ready to go to port?
Ready to go back to Japan. Long Beverly.
Wait a minute. Where are you ready to go? The next port is Japan? San Diego. San Diego. All right. Let me get out of here.
All right, man.
Y'all take it easy, all right? It's tough, and I think most of us who wear the uniform that I wear, we're accustomed to that. We also keep them busy. When you're talking about a 19, 20-year-old kid and you're working in 16, 17 hours a day, he doesn't have time for a lot of mischief.
Basically, what we live by is the airplane. or the flight schedule. And everything else is drawn from that, because that's what we're here for, to fly airplanes.
Accompanied by the thud of planes landing on the deck above, pilots get instructions for the day. Monitors constantly show what is happening on the flight deck.
8 to launch at 20:30 with 13.
Among their colleagues, pilots are known by their radio call sign, a single name that stays with them throughout their career.
Lineups on the board. In 104 is going to be Stick and Dogger, 107 Montana Lulu, and 106 is Rusty and Rooter as a spare. If we can expedite it by some kind of SIMO or close to SIMO launch off the CATS, we'll try to rendezvous without going overhead to 17K and just press out the station to expedite.
There seemed to be something neat about the idea of landing and taking off from a ship. And so this is where I'm at.
Other recoveries available for us are...
Like the carrier itself, the pilots are here for one thing only, to fly airplanes.
I think the attraction for me is that this is such a challenging line of work, that mediocrity is never acceptable. I mean, if you're having a lot of average days, you're unsafe and you're out of there. So you're continually being pushed to strive for perfection.
From the squadron ready rooms, the pilots walk out into the noise and bustle of the flight deck. In a few minutes' time, they will be catapulted into the air, reaching a speed of 150 miles an hour in just under 3 seconds. They say that it concentrates the mind wonderfully. One plane has been lost on this cruise. Nobody wants to be the next one. The cycle of launch and recovery begins with planes lined up at the bow, where they are fueled and guns and rockets are loaded. Then the planes are towed back amidships and lined up for one of the 4 catapults.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm making some preparations here so these goddamn goes, these second goes.
The movement of planes on the flight deck is controlled by the handler. In his office under the bridge, the position of every plane is plotted by hand.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
A plane can be launched every 45 seconds. The handler's job is to make sure it happens.
I don't know.
There are strict rules on the flight deck. Everyone wears a colored shirt to identify their jobs. Green for mechanics, red for munitions, yellow for the catapult crew. Over 100 signals must be memorized to make communication possible. Engine mechanics signal pilots to start their jet engines. Cockpits are closed, and once the engines are running, the plane's surfaces are given a final check. Hand signals warn others that there is possible danger from hot jet exhaust. The ship picks up speed, and a 20-knot wind blows over the flight deck, giving the heavy planes the best possible wind speed for takeoff. Under their own power, the planes must now maneuver over the greasy flight deck, worn smooth by oil and the rubber from constant landings and takeoffs. Hand signals direct the pilot around the flight deck. Only one person on the deck is in control of the plane at any one time, and a strict routine is maintained as the plane is moved up to be launched. The plane's front wheel is hooked up to the catapult, and an engineer gives a final check. As he runs clear, he gives the pilot the signal to go to full power. The launch crews stand amid the noise and heat of the furnace-like jet exhaust. The launch officer signals to the catapult officer, who presses the button. Steam from the ship's boilers drives a piston forward, hurtling the plane into the air. Planes speed by within feet of the handlers. If anyone makes a mistake, many others will pay with their lives. The pilots know they must achieve a speed of 150 miles an hour.
The main thing I'm concerned about is having a cold catapult shot, which is when there's not enough steam behind it to get the airspeed you need to get airborne. If it throws me back in my seat and makes me so I can't hardly think of anything else, then it's probably a good cat shot. And of course, worst case scenario is I have that ejection seat that I'm strapped into, and hopefully it'll float me down to safety should that be called upon to do that. But on a daily basis, I don't think you can become that concerned with a degree of danger, otherwise you couldn't accomplish the mission.
When things go wrong, the handler makes last-minute adjustments to the launch sequence, keeping track of 20 planes and several hundred men.
I need to use L1. 701's going down L1.
A cargo plane's wing doesn't close properly, and men rush to close it, just feet from the blades of the spinning propellers.
Take that spare 402. Bring it down here on the line.
Then a forward catapult breaks down. A repair crew is sent to get it working again.
Crash PO control. Crash PO!
Roger, bottom.
You need to get the 6K up to Cat 1. You know about it? Yeah, I just got off the phone with him. That's all. All right. Get it up there.
Hangar flight.
In the middle of the launch sequence, planes have to be pushed to alternate catapults, adding to the confusion and the danger.
The most dangerous elements out there in a flight deck that we need to be concerned about are some of the items that we may not be able to see or perceive, which would be the jet exhaust. In addition to the jet exhaust, we also have to be aware of propellers, which are very difficult to see, especially at night. We have to be aware of jet intakes, which have the capability to ingest you. We have to be aware of when they're moving aircraft, that you don't get in the way.
But the launch proceeds, and all 12 planes are hurled into the air in a welter of heat and noise. Afterwards, the handler demands an explanation for the failures that have delayed the launch.
Something happened out there, right? I call the boss. I said, hey, what the hell's going on? You know, and he's real somber, and he says, well, I don't know, you know, something about a move or some shit. And then I told him, then I got on the boss, see, and I said,
It is not the first time the catapult has failed.
So I made, did the boss show up?
The handler wants it fixed.
Okay, thanks, bye.
The handler's crew retires to the cramped ready room behind his office for a brief rest. The noise of the flight deck creates its own fatigue, and their work shift can sometimes be very long.
Sometimes we put in 14, sometimes 16, sometimes 20, sometimes 22. A lot of hours. It just depends on how the flight plan goes to see how big these launches are and how many people are required. Most of these guys, Petty Officer Williams, Petty Officer Wilson over here, they've been out here the whole cruise.
Smile, Tank. This is our fly field right here.
You can come around the corner and get a
He's
shout
shy.
Hello.
He's single. Oh, white. My bad. White.
This is fly 3 right here.
Let's move to Australia. This is family. We're all family.
505 airborne. Okay, Cornbread, that was the spare.
Stand well clear of spot 3.
The air boss is responsible for all the planes in the air within a 25-mile radius. While planes are launched, others are circling the carrier waiting to land. The air boss keeps a log of the fuel carried in each plane. Returning from a patrol, planes are running low on fuel, and they need to have enough left for 3 landing attempts.
10 launch.
Every few days, the deck must be washed down to clear it of the rubber slicks and grease. And this has to be done in as little as half an hour between the launch and recovery cycles. It's the only opportunity for many of the men to get a taste of sunlight and fresh air. As the first plane starts its approach, pilots confront another unique element of carrier operations.
The problem with landing on a ship is that the landing area is angled on the carriers. As we're flying along, the lineup is continuing to move to my right side, so you have to constantly correct to try and land on center line. And that's what usually causes the most accidents, landing accidents, is lineup deviations on the carrier, because it's constantly moving.
But I think the most dangerous part, or at least what I feel is the most challenging, would be bringing the plane back aboard, especially the F-14. Doesn't respond very well at slow speed. It's incredibly large. It takes complete focus and concentration to be able to put fear aside and just to get the job done and get that check back aboard safe.
Okay, out of the port catwalk stand, clear the starboard foul line. First aircraft's at the 90.
A hook attached to the tail of the plane catches one of 4 cables stretched across the afterdeck. A 20-ton airplane landing at 120 miles an hour is brought to a halt in 200 feet. Each wire is used exactly 100 times before it is replaced. If a cable should break, it would whip through metal and flesh like a knife through butter.
Window. Hey, it's an 8. Listen, cut lights.
Clear deck.
Mikey 410.
All set 470 Hawkeye. Clear deck.
Landing here is essentially a controlled crash. To maintain safety standards, officers assess every landing. There are grades from 0 to 4.
Well, that wasn't that pretty, was it?
Really? Where was he? Where'd he go? And where'd he end up? Yeah. Okay. No grade? Not an okay. Fair, okay, no grade.
There's a series of grades for each landing. If your landing has very minimal deviations, then they'll give you an okay for that, and that's like a 4.0. And a cut pass is actually not worth anything, a 0. And usually if you're around to collect your cut pass, you're lucky, because that's something that could kill you.
There is an energy about this business that's contagious for everyone on the ship. The men on the carrier, whether they're aircrew or whether they're the people on the carrier themselves, are really at this all the time. There are at least 2 carriers in our Navy deployed 365 days a year. There are at least another 2 or 3 that are working up in home waters. So this is a story that is continuous.
Usually, pilots fly twice a day because taking off and landing on a ship requires constant practice. Military flying means flying to the limit and then being prepared for that limit to be broken. Pilots on the Independence start their training at bases like Miramar Air Station in San Diego, and training continues throughout their flying career. Pilots are taken through simulated ditching and survival techniques and have to requalify every 4 years. There is no age limit. You can keep flying as long as you pass the physical.
1 minute down, 1 to go.
Grab the side, sir, both hands.
Aviation in itself is not dangerous, but it's very unforgiving on those who make mistakes. And I think that we all believe that it would never happen to us. The thought of death, I think we all think that we're invincible in some way. We're all supermen.
Eject. I personally don't think about the danger aspects of it. It could have been a banker and hit by a bus, and what a boring way to go that would be. I'd much rather to go as a shooting star in a ball of glory.
Eject.
It costs $5 million to train a pilot. 500 flying hours are required before landing on a carrier for the first time, and each hour of military flying takes 8 to 10 hours of maintenance. The investment in a carrier pilot is enormous and continues throughout his career. Top Gun, the Navy's combat training school, is housed at Miramar. After 400 hours of carrier flying, crew are eligible to train here. 4 men from the Independence qualify: Montana and Lulu, Rat and Bird. The Top Gun course lasts 6 weeks, and every day pilots are trained against a group of instructors, simulating the latest tactic and weapons to be found around the world, so that they can confront any Air Force and know what to expect.
Our job is to take the individual's experience, fleet, air crew, both flying the F-18 and the F-14, and bring them here and teach them the science and the art of air combat so that they'll go out when called upon and shoot down other folks in flying machines. That's really what it boils down to.
We try to give them the hardest problem they could possibly have. And if they do well there, then the real world shouldn't be a problem for them.
At 7 in the morning, the pilots assemble. 3 weeks into the course, they are engaged in a major exercise. And Lieutenant Mike Lewis, Lulu, is leading the briefing.
The United States now has a carrier about 150 miles off the coast of Orange, and we're planning on a strike the loading docks in one of the ports of their ports of Orange. Now, because of the
country that Lulu calls Orange is a real country with a real Air Force, but Top Gun won't reveal it in public.
And they have a bar cap set up about here, composition of Su-27s and MiG-21s. So our mission today is going to be to destroy that bar cap prior to the strike heading inbound. The lineup will be the 1st Division, Top Guns 1 through 4, Montana and Lulu with the lead, Bird and Rat, Conan and Santa, and Crash and Ziggy. The bandits will be Slammer et al. In Top Gun 40 plus. The launch will be 9:20 for the fighters, 9:25 for the bandits.
While the students work out their game plan, the Top Gun instructors, called bandits, meet separately. They fly A-4s and F-16s in the way that Russian planes would be flown by the foreign Air Force appropriate to the exercise. Their knowledge and experience, updated by the latest intelligence, makes it certain that they will outwit the pilots.
Flying today. Don't know what their route is, don't know what their tactics are. Basically, our 2 airfields that we're working out of are going to be flankers, basically originating out of the northern airfield up there around the Aguila mountain range. Dawn, here's the Pintas, and just fly right down in this, over by this big peak down here. That'll keep you out of Mexico. You should still be tracking down there, and you're not going to want to get right down in the weeds right away.
We'll come through the mountain pass to the Cabezas, and then that's when we'll do our check to the left.
Okay.
It's about 8 miles. I'm gonna make sure we pop fairly close. And
After the briefing, the pilots are keyed up discussing what they expect to do as they put on their special G-suits. They are designed to protect them from the physical effects of sudden aerial maneuvers, the very tight turns they need to make in dogfights, for example.
If all of a sudden you see someone behind you and you have to do a hard brake turn into him, you can instantaneously put 6, 7, some aircraft 8, 9 Gs on. So that's instantaneously that many times the force of gravity. Blood goes down out of your head, even with a G-suit, which is supposed to keep it up there, and you can lose consciousness. That's G-lock, G-induced loss of consciousness. Now, you're basically asleep in your aircraft in whatever plane of motion it's in, and hopefully the blood's going to return to your head, and you're going to wake up and go, wow, got to get out of here.
there's kind of a ball valve, and as you pull G's, it opens up, pumps air into it, into a bladder here, and one around your waist. And it just keeps all the blood from rushing to your legs and out of your head.
At 9 o'clock, Montana and Lulu are in the lead as the students take off and group up before flying towards their target. The Top Gun instructors take off and fly straight to where they will act as defenders. By 9:45, 22 planes are in the air for this simulated attack on an enemy port. Superficially, the exercise is simple. As attackers, the students fly low over land, trying to avoid radar and surface-to-air missile sites. Then, after 30 minutes, the pilots will confront the Top Gun staff defending the target. Montana flies at very low altitude, using mountains and valleys as cover from probing radar beams. When he hears the cockpit siren warning of a missile being aimed at him, he throws the plane into sharp turns to confuse its tracking devices. At times like this, the G-forces can become severe.
Lost contact on the fighters. Have one group over bullseye. Another group 7 miles northeast.
While the students are struggling to avoid these surface-to-air missiles, Top Gun instructors are assuming position uprange, waiting for the students to appear.
Echo, pop-up threat northeast 1 mile hot. Echo copy, fights on, fights on.
Finally, the two forces converge. Planes roll in the sky as pilots maneuver for the best position to use their weapons.
Top Gun 39.9, good G. Good out, Top, he's chasing you. Packet. Terminate ACM, terminate ACM.
They turn towards each other, hoping to fire their missiles first while desperately trying to prevent hostile planes closing in behind them. In pursuit of an A-4, Montana maneuvers his F-14 into a perfect position to fire his weapons. In the real world, the A-4 would have been shot down. But an F-16 has Montana in view. Montana realizes a plane is behind him and pulls a hard turn to get out of the sights of the chasing plane.
Get out of here.
But it is too late, and the fight for Montana is over. As the pilots head for home, they are physically drained by their flying and realize they might not be as good as they thought they were.
Hey, fellas. How? I definitely like Plan Alpha better than Plan Bravo, don't you?
Yeah, I agree.
I think frequently sometimes we train to just benign situations, and we think that we're much better than we might actually be. So Top Gun really presses us and makes us think through every situation, provides absolutely the most difficult possible training environment they can. There's not a day that goes by that you don't get a little lesson in humility. These guys are absolutely some of the best fighter pilots that the Navy has to offer, and they train to this sort of dogfighting and weapons employment all the time. Absolutely the best possible training environment we could be in right now. And yeah, it hurts our ego and it's humbling sometimes, but hopefully we're taking these lessons to heart.
So now it's like we're screwed because for every second that we're turning here, the flankers are coming in on us, and you can feel that happening. So at this point, we start coming back
As acting group leader, it is Lulu's job to piece together what happened during the exercise. The dogfights take place over vast areas of sky, and Lulu needs to hear from everyone what happened and what went wrong. This prepares Lulu for his debriefing with the instructors.
Yeah. You see the flankers up high conning, right?
Like I said, by the time we got in, you could pick up the cons. We were pretty close, and they were, just hauling the chili, and so were we. So I said, well, they're not going to be able to convert. So let's just blow through. Hey, we call our timeouts. As far as I'm concerned, those guys are dead. We're offensive here. We'll go pressing on down, and then Dave locks up the A4s. We shot a couple of Fox 1s into that group. Those guys were dead. Who killed us? I don't know.
The flankers dead.
You've done a pretty good job of getting 3 weapons into that group. Let them do the killing work, and don't take an extra shot. Save that, because you've only got 2 on board. What you need to do, though, Lulu, once you merge with that group, good idea to go ahead and blow on through.
Right.
As it was, there's kind of a breakdown there. Guys are getting kind of balled up, and one F-14 who'll get balled up with the MiG-21s will get kill removed immediately.
However demanding the exercise or humiliating the debriefing, the pilots are wholly engaged in what they do to a degree that few people ever experience.
Flying is like an addiction. It's like being high or drunk.
I live for the adrenaline that this gives us, the life and death nature of it, the rapid fire decision making, the huge responsibility.
I've always wanted to fly, and once you get into flying, it's almost something that you have to do every day.
While the course at Top Gun continues, tensions remain high in the Persian Gulf. In order to provide a safe haven for Iraq's Shiite population, U.S. planes will patrol the skies, monitoring the situation on the ground. They are ordered to shoot down any Iraqi planes that fly in prohibited airspace. Renewed conflict with Iraq seems certain. On Independence, the flight operations take on a new urgency. In the evening, after operation planning meetings, helicopters take senior officers back to land or to other ships in the battle group. In the armory, buried deep below deck, bombs and missiles are fused, primed and sent up to the flight deck as the Independence moves to near war readiness. The patrol is no longer routine, and the aircraft carrier is now fulfilling its purpose, projecting military strength.
Yeah. No, I sure don't.
Enforcing the no-fly zone calls for operations around the clock, and moments of sleep are grabbed when the chance arises. Returning from Top Gun, the F-14 crews are thrown into action immediately. The mood on the ship has changed dramatically.
In a perfect world situation, it wouldn't be any different at all. We have that motto that you fight like you train. So ideally, we should be able to just step into this scenario and without a ripple. The reality of it is there's no room for error now, obviously, where everyone feels like they're on the edge, on the step all the time.
Aerial combat is now a real possibility. Guns are strapped on. Radio beacons and Arabic leaflets are carried in case they get shot down.
Okay. Iraq obviously has fighters up there, and if they ever choose to send them down, then you need to be ready for it. And it's easy to get complacent when you go up there every night and nothing happens, but you know, sometime something may happen and you need to be ready for it. So, who knows? We're going to go on a mission over Iraq for about 4 hours. We'll be escorting a couple of A6s on their mission. And our basic job is protect those guys in case Iraq sends fighters south, and we can protect the A6s that way.
Montana's and Lulu's mission is to provide protection for aircraft taking reconnaissance photos over the southern part of Iraq. Flying over the Iraqi coast, Montana knows that during the Gulf War, 36 planes were shot down by Iraqi missiles. The rules of engagement are clear. Any Iraqi plane in this airspace can be attacked and shot down. So too might Montana's. He needs to refuel during the mission, and at this point, he fears that a missile's radar has locked onto his plane at a time when he is most exposed and vulnerable.
We got a couple of indications of surface-to-air emitters, radars. That kind of took us by surprise because theoretically where we were, there really shouldn't have been much there. And we're on the tanker's wing getting ready to tank, and then we got some pretty good indications of it. And that made me kind of nervous for a minute. It was disconcerting because personally that's the first time I had ever been over in enemy territory, so to speak, and actually got lit up like that.
290. Roger. 6001, 2 miles. Good news. 6001, Roger.
This mission ends without further incident. But subsequently, Iraqi planes do challenge the no-fly zone and are shot down. Although returning safely, Montana and Lulu report a series of mechanical problems with their plane that could also have proved fatal.
It's a really hard force on the stick, and you get hardly any reaction out of it. Yeah. I mean, no shit, I thought I had a problem there for a while. It's like...
It's always had like an excessive longitudinal...
The long cruise and the constant alert are beginning to wear down both men and machines.
I could go to different modes on the PDCP, and the other modes work fine, but you go back to air and you still get the gun symbology.
Most of us are probably on about 4.5 to 5.5 hour sleep cycle at this stage of the game. It seems that there's an airplane launching or one recovering almost all the time. It takes constant vigilance, constantly reminding people of the hazards that they face almost every moment of every day, and trying to keep them peaked with this kind of repetitive operation that we're associated with now is a real challenge.
The Independence is a conventional powered carrier and needs continual refueling. Every few days, a tanker cruises alongside, and thousands of gallons of fuel oil and kerosene flow into the carrier's bunkers.
Standby detention midships.
Music is part of this ritual. This contact with the outside world drives home the isolation of life on the carrier. This is the human cost of maintaining this massive ship on patrol. Confined with 5,000 others, men are lonely for home. For 6 months, their only contact with friends, lovers, and families has been by the mail. At the end of a long cruise, they long for it to be over. One of the greatest dangers that they face now is the loss of morale and the failure to concentrate on the job at hand.
Teenage peer pressure, and that's what we have out here as teenagers. Teenage peer pressure is very strong, and I think we take advantage of that. The organization takes advantage of that. There is a very strong pressure to do what's right and to do the job correctly. Even though they might not necessarily like it out here, they'll do the job correctly.
It was kind of hard. I came out of high school, you know, and it was, most of the places when you try to get a job, they wanted some experience. I just didn't have the experience, so I joined. I liked what I did, and I stayed in.
I feel I'm missing my family and my brothers and sisters growing up, but I feel I'm learning a lot more out here than what I would be if I was staying home. I'm exposed to a lot of things. A lot of people don't see it at any time. I think it's more of a learning experience, and you have to look at it more objectively than that. It's missing your family. Yeah. We all miss our families, but we have a job to do out here. We all want to do it the best we can.
When we go on cruise, we get a tremendous guilt trip because you want to go. It's exciting. This is what our profession is, and you want to go. But at the same time, that's impossible to explain to families. You just can't do it.
I saw my wife in last January. It's been about 9 months.
How do they get on without you?
She's always depressed. Like to have me home, I guess. I like to be home, but I guess she's getting along fine. Hopefully she is. We'll find out in about a month and a half.
Are you looking forward to going back?
Yes, I am. Glad when I get there. Because I got a little boy now, well, another little boy. And I'll be glad to see him, as well as the other one. Yep.
You see the world, I guess. Sometimes you just feel like you're getting closed in and you're never going to see land again. It's like we feel now. When's land?
In the 6 months that they were at sea, the crew of Independence conducted 8,752 launches and arrested landings. In the 23 days that the Independence operated in support of operations over Iraq, there were 1,349 missions, an average of 58 a day.
A production of WGBH Boston. Funding for NOVA is provided by Johnson & Johnson, the signature recognized around the world for commitment to quality healthcare products for the entire family. And Lockheed, America's aerospace company, supporting math, science, and engineering education for national technology leadership. Major funding for NOVA is provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by annual financial support from viewers like you.
This is PBS.